here and do a short little live stream. As per usual, there's not anyone on yet. It always takes a moment. But I expect it to take a little bit longer than usual for the reason that this is the first live stream I've done in, I want to say 5 months, I think. Maybe 6. It's been a little while. So it'll take a moment for everyone to hop on who's gonna hop on, but as per usual, we'll just kind of ramble on a little bit until people do. If people do, we'll see. My dog is being extremely needy right now. She's realized that my attention is going to someone besides her, and that means that whereas before she didn't really need my attention, now she desperately needs my attention. So we'll see if this gets anyone. Okay, a few people hopping on now. It always takes a little bit, and like I said before, this is the first one of these I've done in quite some time for a couple of very good reasons, but yeah, we're going live again for the first time in a long time. Thomas jumped on. I can always count on you. Yep. The invisible orange. I love that. Hello there, good sir. Hello back. Okay, boom. It's always a process. You wait a few seconds, nobody's on, the number goes up 1 or 2, and then it goes up a few dozen. A couple of people, a few comments come in every now and then in languages that I cannot read, but thank you for hopping on. I do appreciate it. Axe Fisher says, howdy, 2025. Fama says, how have I been? Stressed the hell out. There's been some very specific reasons why I have not been doing lives over the last couple of months, and yeah, very, very, very stressed. But we're doing a little bit better now. Wayne Sanders says, in Galveston, throw me a bone on a local spot for big cats. Thank you, sir. Well, join the Patreon because that's where I put all the best spots that I do give away. I put them all on Patreon. Patreon's like $5. The link is in the description. I've got something like 15 highly detailed essays on different spots that I fish if you are interested. James Harrison says, hello from Raymondville, Texas. I don't think I've ever heard of Raymondville, Texas. I don't know where that is. I have my Google Maps pulled up, though. I was doing some research on well, I don't want to give it away because I was working on a video project that we're going to try to do. I wanted to do it in the next couple of weeks, but part of the project is going to involve some intense heat, so it might work best if I do it a little bit later in the summer. But I've got Google Maps pull up, so hang on. Raymondville, Texas. Let's see where that's at in relation to where I am. Oh, way down south. Almost the... yeah, way down south. I would imagine, oh my goodness, you're right across from South Padre Island. I would imagine you have amazing saltwater fishing down there. H-Town Fishing says, how are you? Remember me? I helped you land a gar and film that one time at that treatment plant. I'm thinking back because it has been a long time since I filmed down at the treatment plant. Nick, oh yes, of course, yes, you're on the YouTube channel. Okay, now I was thinking of the other treatment plant, the one that I refer to as the worst kept secret in Houston. But you're talking about the other one. Yes, no, of course I remember you, man. How are you doing? We landed that alligator gar on that like really like scary kind of concrete slope, and yeah, it's one of my favorite pictures that I have is. You took it. Is me under the trees, like holding it. Yeah. Anyway, Flama says, saw you got a new car. Glad to see you're mobile again. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, my Jeep officially died. Which, the things I could tell you. You know what? The things I will tell you in a moment about Jeep. Do not buy Jeep. If Jeep's lawyers are watching this, I'm sorry. Jeeps are bad. They're just bad. I'm welcome to have my opinion. Jeeps are bad. Don't buy them. Man, they are just not reliable cars at all. But anyway, that Jeep died in, I want to say September. Yeah, it was September, because if you've watched the last couple of videos I've done, I did some collaborations with Thumb is the English version of the name that he goes by when he's here. big time YouTuber and television star over in Thailand, over in Southeast Asia. And he came over to do a bit on alligator gar. And we have a mutual friend, Spencer, who some of you know. And we filmed together. And it was on my way to pick him up from the airport that my Jeep died, like forever, like dead. Because it's died plenty of times. It's died in other states, and I've had to like get AAA to come help me, like in Florida and stuff. But it was dead with him like landing in the air terminal, being like, "Are you here?" And I'm like, "My car's dead." And since then, it has not run. I have not driven it. I'm looking to get rid of it. So I was in the market for a new car for about the last 4 months, which for me, and I would assume for anybody these days, unless you are just rich and you can just buy a car, like that, um, it's stressful, and it's just hours and hours and hours every day of research, especially considering the fact that, like, I where I was coming from, pretty much anything is an improvement over Jeep as far as reliability goes. But the cars that I wanted, the Toyota RAV4 being, one of the most reliable all-around cars in the market, they're expensive. And not expensive as far as cars go. Like, they're in the mid 20s, right? But then you start shopping around for one and people start throwing those extra fees on there, and then you're getting close to 30, and it's like, oh, you know, it makes it tough when you have a job like this, because the longer you go without a car, the less of your work you can do. And unlike a lot of traditional jobs, my paycheck goes down if I cannot work with frequency, which you will have no doubt noticed over the last couple of months. There have been far fewer videos than there were in these 6-7 months before that. And the reason was I didn't have a car. And so here I am desperately trying to save money to replace this car. And I was smart, by the way. I had saved quite a bit before that, kind of anticipating it to happen. That ended up saving me. Because as time went on and I'm researching these cars and trying to find a car, I found a couple, they got sold. I would set up a meeting, like, I'm coming there tomorrow to come look at this car. Sold that night. As that happened, things come up. The older you get, the more you will realize this is true. I'm in my mid 30s. When you start trying to save money for any given thing, something else will happen and steal that money from you. It will happen. It's the universe's way of showing you who's boss. So repeatedly, I would save up all this money, and then my wife's car needs a new alternator. There's 1,000 gone. So eventually, I nailed it, or narrowed it down to 2 cars, very different cars. It was between the Toyota Tacoma, I think a 2018 Tacoma, and I've always wanted a Tacoma. They're probably the most reliable car ever made, and I've always wanted one. So I was like, okay, it's either Tacoma or it's going to be a Mazda, because Mazdas are Japanese cars. The parts are made in most of the same factories that Toyota's parts are made in. And depending on what model you get, they're assembled either in, a lot of them are assembled in Mexico and then shipped over to the US. But the parts are Japanese, which is what you want in a car these days. So it was one of those 2 cars, very different types of cars. And what eventually won in the end was how much I drive. I drive I want to say 1 year I cleared something like 35,000 miles in a year, just driving everywhere for filming. And I thought about it, and I was like, as much as I want a Tacoma, and as just rock solid as those cars are, I would probably go broke trying to travel as much as I do for filming. So I was like, I came up with all these plans on how to travel with a car doing what I do. It seems counterintuitive, but I know how I'm going to do it. And believe it or not, yes, all my big 8-foot rods can fit in that car. I'm also going to start switching out a lot of my gear to 2-piece and travel rods, which when I first started this, you didn't have a whole lot of choices that were quality. But these days, that's been one of the bigger changes in the fishing scene in my time doing this professionally, is how many quality rods and reels you can get for each type of fishing that are now collapsible. And I'm a big fan of collapsible and 2-piece rods and stuff. So anyway, yeah, I have a Mazda 6 2021. It is beautiful. I love it. It is so nice. that I got it like I want to say last Saturday, and I've driven it almost every day since, and it is still almost entirely full of gas. Like the gas mileage on it is psycho compared to the Jeep I had. So I'm excited. It'll be fun. Terry Hancock says, "I'm glad you were on here." Yeah, I'm glad to be back. Glad to be back. Um, I don't know how often I'll be doing live streams. I'm going to try to pick up the pace again. It's been a little while, but there's been some very good reasons for why I haven't been on here. I'm trying to get to the point where I'm comfortable doing this again. Fama says it died the week before the last time I saw you. Yeah, because you were there. For anyone who doesn't know, I think you're visible in one of the videos coming up because I intentionally split up a lot of the catches that Thumb made and that I made when I was with him to release as many videos out of that expedition as possible because I knew my car was dead. I needed to stretch as many videos that I had as long as I could. So I think there's one coming up that you're visible in. But for anyone who doesn't know, Famas, and by the way, go subscribe to his YouTube channel if you're on here. He was the camera operator, or one of two camera operators for the videos that we filmed with Thumb. And one of the videos coming up next, he's the camera operator on it. Joker Red says, new to your channel. Well, I'm glad you're here. It's been a little bit different in the last couple of months that it had been in the couple of years before, but I've just kind of explained as to why that is. Andy Simo Simpson, a.k.a. Electric Simo. Wow, it just keeps going. I thought I was reading your comment like twice there. Hi, mate, from Yorkshire, UK. Hello. Thank you for tuning in from the UK. Screwed Up, Texas. Yeah, pretty much. Fort Bend in the house. Toyota Hilux. Yeah, Toyota is impossible to beat. You can't beat it. They're the best cars in the world. But they also have a stranglehold on the market. So Toyota is kind of like the Macallan whiskey or what's the one brand? Levi jeans of the car world, essentially. Like they're really, really, really good. They're solid. They're everything you want them to be. They also suffocate the market. And there are other cars that are nearly as good in most other areas, made in the same places and stuff, just with a different, name on them. And that's what I ended up going with. Carolina Boys Productions. I caught my first alligator gar yesterday. Well, congrats. Let me know how. Not that this matters that much, but just in case, if you want to tell me, let me know how big it was and what you caught it on. You don't have to tell me where, but tell me how big it was. That's awesome. Joker Red 3 says yes. Screwed Up Texas. Nice. Very exciting. Oh, yeah. Flema says, I thought it was funny that you got another red vehicle. The truck that it came down between, because remember, it was either the Mazda that I have or the Toyota Tacoma. And the Tacoma, I think, was just gray. I think it was just like a gray car. I wish I had a black car, honestly, but red is fine. Joker Red 3 says your water tank blows up in the house. Hasn't happened yet. Let's hope it doesn't happen. Script Text says my son caught his PB catfish, 33 pounds, 33.22 pounds the day the cold front hit. His PB before that was 4 pounds. It is always nice when you can, man, it's nice when you can break a PB. It's amazing when you can double a PB, but when you can like go 7 times your PB, my math is off, almost 8 times your PB. That's amazing. No, what is that? Yeah, close. Anyway, that's incredible. That's an awesome fish. Screw Texas. It was in a tiny little pond in an apartment complex in the Houston suburbs. That is awesome. I love it when you can catch. I mean, obviously, it's kind of my whole thing. I love it when you can catch fish from bizarre spots. Flema says, had a blast. I appreciate it. Well, I'm glad you were able to come with us to film. Goldie Literal says, hi. Hello back. Fish and Outdoor Fun says, hello. Hello back. Dodge Plays says, hello. Well, hello back. Goldie Literal says, what is your big fish? If you mean what is my PB fish, for a long time, it was an alligator gar. upper 200s, close to 300 pounds, the one that I went viral for. But I'm so glad because I broke it not just once, but like 3 times. I broke that PB like 3 times in one trip to California a few months ago with Spencer Wonder. If you don't know, Terra Firma Tackle. Just there's a link to it, by the way, in the description of this live stream. There's my Patreon, my Instagram, if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, and the Terra Firma Tackle link to the rigs that I designed with Spencer for alligator gar. But you can check out all the gear that we used to land those monster fish in California. My PB is, and we didn't weigh these fish for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're a protected species. So, once you realize you have one on the hook, you get it in, get the hook out, get it back. The other reason is simple. We did not have the gear capable of weighing it with us. They were too big. We just couldn't do it. Even if we could, I bet you it would just cause more pain to the fish. Like it would probably injure the fish. They were so big at this point. But I caught a great white shark in California. That was, I cannot remember what Spencer said. Spencer has caught so many fish around the world and so many sharks, and he's seen so many white sharks firsthand that he can accurately look and point and be like, yeah, no, this one weighs this much. I want to say he said somewhere between 350 and 400 as an estimate for how much that shark would have weighed. I'll have to ask him again. But that video is on the YouTube channel. If you go back, I think it's like one of the last ones I uploaded. You can't mistake it. The thumbnail is me with a great white shark, the tail coming up, and his caudal fin is so wide that you couldn't fit it in the screen. It's just massive. And then the rest of the shark filling the frame. And then I think the bigger fish I caught on that trip, though, would have been those black sea bass. Because there was one I caught, and this one is on the... I have a big video of this trip, this island trip we did, on the main channel, but I also have one of the fish is not on the main channel. I put it only on Patreon for my patrons because I think that is my PB. I caught it in the middle of the night, and we have really good spot. I brought some really good lights, so we have a well-lit video when we get the fish in. And I think that fish was pushing 400 pounds. Spencer definitely caught one that was pushing 400 pounds. I think he said the one I caught at night was getting up there too. So those fish, man, in addition to the fact that they're just massive in terms of weight, because they're like 6-7 feet long, but whereas like a 7-foot alligator gar is going to be like this big around, like that, 7-foot alligator gar is going to be about that big around. If it's a really fat one, maybe something like this. Those fish, it's just, I can't put my arms in frame. Like, they're like this big around. They're massive. They're massive animals, shaped like barrels. That's actually the cover photo, the thumbnail for this live stream is one of the black sea bass that I caught on that trip. So, really, really, really proud of those catches. And by the way, if you go and you watch those videos, they're not like anything I've ever caught before. Like, you see me fishing for alligator gar with fairly inexpensive tackle, Daiwa BGs, stuff like that. Occasionally Avets. I'm using like an Avet 50 or 80 on some of these fish. They had a, what was the one? It's like a Tiagra 130 is one of the reels they caught one of the really big fish on. Geez, massive reels are like this big, like that big. And the line is like 200-pound line, 600-pound monofilament, just the line as thick as your finger. You could rappel off a building with this line, and that's not an exaggeration. You could do it. And it's just the tackle is insane, and we are harnessed in and clipped in to this harness. And Spencer and Ed, who was with us, were holding on to the hand, like there's a handle on the back of the harness. If you're a big game fisherman or you've been big game fishing, you know what that is. So there's a handle on the back of the harness, and Ed and Spencer are both bigger than me. Like I'm 5'6"-ish, 5'7"-ish. I want to say Ed is probably like 5'9", 5'10", and like bigger than me. And Spencer is well over 6 feet tall. He's much bigger than I am. And like when they would hold that harness, that fish would take off, and multiple times it would pull both of us down on the ground, and we'd have to like tripod up, almost like you're fighting like a good grappler, like you're fighting Islam Makhachev or something. Like you have to tripod up and build up with this massive weight pulling you down. It feels like you're grappling like a wrestler. That's what it feels like. It feels like a NCAA Division I wrestler trying to pull you to the ground, and you are trying to pull yourself back up. It's astonishing how powerful those fish are. Fama says, "What's my predictions for UFC 311 coming up? I'm really excited for that card. Is that Islam and Umar and Marab? I think it is. Because if that's the one, I'm psyched for that as well. I can't remember if that's the one. No, hang on. I was about to type it into Google. Probably just bring up Las Vegas. Let's see if that's the one I was thinking it is. Oh, I typed in UFC 111. It was like George St. Pierre, Dan Hardy. I was like, oh, that feels like a long time ago. 311. Yes, that is. For those of you who don't know, because I posted some shorts a few months ago that got me an enormous influx of subscribers. So if you are new to the channel, while this is my job, I have a professional conservation education background. I worked for the Houston Zoo for quite a long time in conservation and education. And then because I was kind of dissatisfied with the lack of representation that a lot of local freshwater fish get, native species, tend to get in zoos and aquariums. Zoos and aquariums being largely centered on saltwater fish for understandable reasons. It's very hard to display the natural environment of freshwater fish in America because you just can't see through the water. And even if you were to put clear water, like think the Bass Pro tank or something, which is horribly overcrowded, by the way. The best exhibit I've seen like that done well is in the Audubon Zoo and Aquarium. Audubon Aquarium has an amazing freshwater exhibit. But anyway, very few and far between because of the tendency to want to put beautiful aquariums in. I decided, you know what, I want to do my own version of an education show. The internet is where it's at. This is a while ago, so this is before everyone and their grandmother had a TikTok channel or a YouTube channel, before TikTok even existed. I mean, this was years ago. And I was like, I want to do a YouTube channel on freshwater fish and freshwater ecosystems. And the only way I can think of filming these animals at the moment, especially being in Texas, is to catch them first. So I taught myself, I learned how to fish. And you can see the dramatic improvements that are made over the years. First couple of videos are kind of painful sometimes to watch. But anyway, this is my job. This is my professional background. If you want to know about me as a person, if you want to know what keeps me going, if you want to know what I love, I do love conservation, but if you want to know who wildlife, my name is Peyton, by the way. If you want to know who Peyton, what Peyton loves, it is martial arts. And it always has been. I'm a very long practicing and pretty damn good, if I may say, martial artist, and I love mixed martial arts. So the UFC questions that you'll see in these comments are not random sports questions. You'll notice people who know me don't ask me my take on this football team or that football team, because I don't know how to play football. I don't know the rules, but I do know all the rules of the vast majority of combat sport competitions that you'll see on TV. So UFC 311 is one of the most anticipated events for me in a very long time. And the main event is a rematch between Islam Makhachev, who's probably the best fighter in the world right now, and is the lightweight champion. And he is rematching Arman Tsarukyan, and they met early in their career in the UFC. So a few fights in for each of them. They're both very young, and they had a real scrap. And Islam pulled out the victory, and they're going to have a rematch. And they are both much better than they used to be, both of them. And the co-main event is Merab Dvalishvili, who is just if you were to take cardio and wrestling and just blend those together to make a human being out of it, that's what he is. He just never stops. But he's fighting Umar Nurmagomedov. And so my prediction for these fights, and I could be wrong about this, but this is my prediction. I think Islam Makhachev keeps the title. I think he beats Arman Tsarukyan. And I think Umar Nurmagomedov takes the title off of Merab Dvalishvili. Let's see. Blake Torres says, you in Houston? Yes, I am. The vast majority of my YouTube channel is kind of centered around Houston, and that is where I live. I don't think she was being serious about the alligator gar. The world record is, I believe, for a alligator gar caught by any method. It is still, I believe, that one in Mississippi from 2011, and it is like 327 pounds. Think. I think that's the world record, like official. Let's see, the real deal. Do you think that there are flathead catfish in Bray's Bayou? Well, I think Bray's Bayou, let's see. I'm going to say, I mean, there could be. Obviously, you can't rule out the idea that fish could move from one bayou to the next, because if you're going through the ship channel, Buffalo Bayou connects to Bray's Bayou, right? And they are definitely in Buffalo Bayou. I've caught them in there up to like 45 pounds. And I've known guys who caught them up to like 50 pounds and bigger out of Buffalo Bayou. However, I have never caught one in Bray's Bayou, and I don't think I've talked to some biologists a long time ago who had done some electrofishing in that area, and they didn't mention catching any. They did mention big catfish. They messaged me and said, "Hey, like, we like your stuff. We like your conservation stuff." I was Texas Parks and Wildlife fisheries biologists were talking about a electrofishing program they were doing, which is where they essentially temporarily stun fish with electricity, so they float up to the surface. You can get a very accurate estimation of what's in there, how healthy they are, what kind of issues they might have, how big they are, whether or not they're eating well, whether or not there's invasive species that shouldn't be there, etc., etc. Put them all back if they're supposed to go back, and you can kind of get a bird's eye view of what's living in the water from a boat, better than you can with a fishing line or a net, especially considering how much junk is in there. You couldn't net it. And they mentioned blue catfish being enormous in that zone, but they never mentioned flathead. So if I had to guess, I would say that water might be a little too fast for them to feel comfortable. They do sit in moving water, but they do tend to like it to be a little bit slower, I think. So there might be a few, but not enough to bank on. I wouldn't go fishing for flathead and Bray's Bayou when Buffalo Bayou is so close, and I know for a fact big ones are in there. I still can't say that. I got pretty good at it at one point. Now I'm bad at it again. Hey, how are you and the fishing? How have we been? Okay, the fishing this is the time of year where it gets cold, as it always does. So the job becomes a little bit difficult, and this is where I would traditionally go and film stuff in Florida, and one of the things that has been putting that off has been not having a car, but I got one. So we are planning some trips to go film in other states where it is warm and sunny. Should do that pretty soon. So overall, I would say things are looking up. That is the phrase I would use. Flama says, I got to go drive somewhere. I got to go drive somewhere as in you have to go drive somewhere. But I'll have YouTube Livestream on and won't be chatting until later if you're still on. Looking forward to your upcoming videos, man. Well, don't touch your phone screen while you're driving, and I'll catch you later. Nathan Holman says, yeah, guys, she's not being serious. I caught a 10-plus pound bowfin lately in Missouri City. Didn't weigh it, but he was 29 inches and fat. Yeah, no, they are some of the most exciting fish you can catch in the state of Texas. They fight so hard. It's really fun to catch bowfin. Start Fishing says, what's happening, man? Not a whole lot. Just doing the first live stream in quite a while. A name that I cannot read without butchering it, but give me the wave, so I'm waving back. Thank you for tuning in. Nathan Holman says, screwed up Texas. That's awesome, bro. Oh, yeah. Peace sign, too. Victor Locke says, Islam will smash for sure. They should just make a heavyweight class called Dagestani. What's interesting, because I do think he's going to win, but they're not invincible. There are certain things that can be done against that style of wrestling that is highly effective, and you're starting to see people figure it out. And this is one of the reasons why people are so hesitant to acknowledge that Islam Makhachev is as good as Khabib Nurmagomedov, because he is. In my opinion, I think he's better. I think he's a better fighter. You had all these fighters, it's very similar to what happened in UFC 1 when Royce Gracie rolled through with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and nobody had ever seen him before. And he just annihilated everyone. And then UFC 2, 3, and 4 roll through, and people are starting to figure it out, and his fights start getting really tough. And then you start having guys like Sakuraba in Japan that beat the Gracies because he's kind of figured out how to deal with their style of grappling. And you're starting to see that with the cage work meta that's coming out of Dagestan. So Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, Habib's father, kind of pioneered what I think is kind of the core of MMA in the cage. So the idea of what MMA was going to be originally, the idea was like, let's have a tournament where all these different styles fight. We find out which style wins. And the style that won was the style of submission grappling, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And there's more than one type of submission grappling, obviously. In fact, what's his face? Goodness. I have to turn my MMA fan card. I'm failing to recall his name. Shamrock was a really good catch wrestler, which is a type of submission grappling. But Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was a much more complete and I'm going to say a more effective system overall for that type of fighting. And once people started to kind of get wise to the way it operated and they started learning it themselves and they started learning what gave it trouble and gave those style of fighters trouble, you started to see Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu become much less of this train that would run people over until you got to the point where not only could everyone do it, but I would say freestyle and folk style wrestling, like American style wrestling, ended up becoming the dominant form of fighting again. I don't think jiu-jitsu is the most, I think you have to know it, but I don't think it's the most dominant form of martial arts among the martial arts that make up MMA. I think it's wrestling. And what you're seeing with the cage wrestling meta invented by Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, because that is kind of like jiu-jitsu, like it was the most effective change in MMA strategy and fighting we had seen since the beginning of mixed martial arts as a sport. It's one of the most influential things to ever happen in combat sports. His cage wrestling meta. And what we're starting to see is fighters figure out how to deal with it better. So when you see the best case for this, or best case study for this, is watching Dustin Poirier fight Habib Nurmagomedov, and then a few years later he got to fight Islam Makhachev, and Habib Nurmagomedov ran him over, and then a few years go by and people start figuring out how to deal with some of the techniques that Habib and Abdulmanap's crew use. Poirier is obsessively practicing them. He's training with guys like Mateusz Gamrot and stuff like that. And when he fights Islam, you see the changes he's made and how to grapple them. And it's very distinct, the changes he made. And he still got beaten. He got submitted by Islam Makhachev. No shame in that. He's probably the best fighter in the world right now. But he gave him a hell of a time. And you could see that he was figuring out how to counter a lot of what that game was. Alexander Volkanovski, when he fought Islam Makhachev, did a bunch of stuff that nobody had tried in that cage wrestling meta and gave him a bunch of problems. It was a very close fight. Had it been another round, which, I mean, MMA is not 6 rounds. You can't just say like, oh, my guy didn't win, I wish it was another round. But the fight was starting to shift big time towards Alexander Volkanovski in that 5th round. He knocked him down like flat on the ground. They ended on top of him, hitting him from like a north-south position. Or I think he went to guard from there. But yeah, people are starting to figure out the meta of the Dagestani cage wrestling. So I don't expect them to run everyone over forever. I do expect someone to come along and kind of dethrone someone eventually. If you fight long enough, you will lose. That was another really smart thing Habib did. He fought like 3 times with the belt, and then he was like, I'm out. And it's like, oh, you fought like 5 good guys your whole career. And granted, they were like the 5 best dudes in the world, and he smoked them all. All the other people he fought were like, just fine. But once people started figuring out that that system of cage wrestling and how to counter it, guys who did it started having more trouble. So that's why I think Makhachev's he's is striking, specifically his kickboxing, the way he blends his punching and his boxing and his kicks together. And he has this wicked wizard throw that he does off the fence. So when you get put onto the fence, like if the fence is behind me and someone's pushing me into the fence, you're going to turn off to one side, right? And you usually have an overhook, so somebody's arm is here. And he has this system of throwing people off that overhook to get off the fence that is like one of the coolest things in MMA right now. So he's bringing some new wrinkles to that game that are really nice. But yeah, the dynasty won't be invincible forever. Let's see. Stop commenting if you're driving. Falma says, I'm at a red light. Jury versus Hill is a great fight on 312 as well. I hope Jury beats Jamal Hill, just because Jamal Hill's annoying. And it would be hilarious. More importantly, because it would be funny. Nathan Holman says, do you think Bones Jones is the greatest all-around MMA fighter of all time? He's certainly on that list. I don't know if I think he's the greatest of all time. It depends on how you're defining terminology, like greatest, best. I mean, he's on, like, if you were going to list 3, he's in that list. So he's certainly up there. You'd have a hard time saying he's not. There are some PED accusations that people try to throw out the window because, oh, the testing rules changed or this or that, or it's like, oh, he failed like 3 times though. I don't care about all the car wreck stuff or like his problems with the law or whatever. It's like, if you're going to start, like, obviously you shouldn't do it, but if you're going to start trying to use that as a way to say somebody's not a great athlete, like, you clearly have not been watching sports very long. Because all the best athletes throughout all time have always had these like big, like, troubled histories with law enforcement, and their personal lives are a wreck and stuff. It's very common. In fact, if anything, it just shows that he's closer to being what people expect from big time athletes than other fighters. So he's definitely up there. George St. Pierre's up there. I think Islam. Oh, nope. Almost accidentally blocked someone because I clicked a thing twice by mistake. George St. Pierre's up there. Islam Makhachev is on his way up there. Demetrius Johnson. Hard to. A lot of people forget about Demetrius Johnson, but he's definitely up there. The Real Deal says, I'm trying to get into the martial arts area of sports. What do you think is better, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, Muay Thai, karate, boxing, or kickboxing? Well, it depends on what you personally enjoy, because they are all absolutely critical staples of mixed martial arts. So you didn't say MMA, you just said martial arts. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to what you enjoy and what is best for your physical body type. That is, that's the real key. So, like, you don't have to answer this on here, but think about this. Like, number one, how old are you? Because if you're older, I wouldn't recommend starting with something like Taekwondo. It's going to be a little bit hard to get those feet up there, all right? If you're younger, I'm going to suggest, well, your age. Consider your age. Consider the style of fight that you like. Like, if you were to spar someone, think about this. Would you prefer, like, what would make you more comfortable psychologically in a sparring environment? And not a real fight, but just like playful sparring. Would you be the type of person to stay at a distance and pick your shots from there? Or would you be the type of person to press in and get inside of somebody's, like, inside of this range? Would you want to fight someone right here so that you are up in their grill? Would you want to take someone down? Would you want to pull guard? Do you prefer sweeps? Do you prefer wrestling up? Think about the way you like to fight, and then the style of martial arts that you want to begin with. You can go from there. And the good thing is, most MMA gyms, the way gyms operate is they don't charge you per the class you're taking. They charge you per the month, and then you have access to all these different classes. And you go join a good MMA gym, and you're going to have the opportunity to do wrestling, jiu-jitsu, boxing, Muay Thai. They're all going to be in there, and you can kind of go between them, and you can kind of pick the one that stands out as your favorite. Do some trial classes. Everybody that I've ever seen of quality, any quality gym ever, allows trial classes. Um, find a good gym in your area and go just you gotta go do some stuff, and you're gonna find out very quickly what you like to do. And as you age and as things change and as you get burnt out with one style or the other, or you become more proficient in one thing or the other, that will change. You will start to change the style of fighting you like. Um, so definitely get in the gym, and you will find what it is that you enjoy. What you're trying to accomplish is entirely like the reason you're doing it is going to help you answer that question. Because if you were asking me like for self-defense, I would recommend kind of a conglomeration. I would recommend number one, um, making sure you can dictate where the fight takes place. So wrestling is probably a huge aspect of that. Um, Jiu-jitsu is fantastic, but ideally speaking, you don't want to be on the ground in a street fight. Even if you were winning the fight, you might be on top of like glass or nails or something. So like if you're talking about street fighting in real life, I don't know when the last time you looked down at the street you're walking on and really examine the stuff you're walking over, but you don't want to be on your back on that. You just don't. So dictate where the fight can take place, and then have the ability to guard up and keep people off of you, with like a high guard or bull guard as it's often called. Be able to like use your elbows and stuff like that. That's Muay Thai. So if you're thinking about like self-defense, I would say take some wrestling classes and some Muay Thai. Judo is fantastic, especially for the real life application of manipulating people's clothing. So one of the things that you're not going to learn in wrestling, except for people's shoes, you learn how to grab people's shoes in wrestling. One of the things you're not going to learn in a lot of martial arts that is very handy in self-defense situations is how to like attack people's lapel and maneuver them, or like, gripping their sleeves and stuff. You can choke someone unconscious with their own jacket if you know how. So get in the gym. Get in the gym, play around with a couple of styles, find some instructors you like, and you will find out what you wanna practice. Psychic Saito says, "Hi Peyton, everybody around the world too. Well, I am glad you're here. I shot back a response to your email, but I'm glad you're on the live stream." Bon Bao Weem, I think that is, was my PB bass. Not huge, around 7 pounds. So a respectable fish, but not a giant. Ringo Fishing says, Adesanya is probably my favorite fighter. Yeah, I mean, he is fun. When he's fun to watch, he's fun to watch. And when he's not, he's not. Very similar to Anderson Silva. But he is a truly great fighter, for sure. Nathan Holman says, I loved watching Hoist Gracie dominate people taking him to the ground. Yeah, man, when he came on the scene, it was like watching an alien. Like, nobody had ever seen anything like that before. It was bizarre. Like, when he was on the scene and just eliminating people with this weird style of fighting that was the antithesis of everything as an American we had been taught fighting was. You know, we thought fighting was the John Wayne sucker punch, where you'll lean back and then wah, big right hand. It's like, no, actually, you strangle people with their own clothes on the ground. But yeah, I remember my first MMA event that I watched. I actually watched it because my dad was watching it. This is back in 2005, I believe. Was Matt Hughes versus Hoist Gracie. So I got to see kind of the young eliminate the old, and that would be that's a staple in combat sports. Ringo Fishing says, kickboxing is probably the best thing to start out with. Those guys always do well when they transition to MMA. You could say that about a lot of styles. I'm not going to push anyone away from kickboxing. I love Muay Thai. And for anyone who's out there, if you don't know, there is actually a difference between American kickboxing and Muay Thai. American kickboxing is more like if you were to take boxing and combine it with Taekwondo. And Muay Thai is like if you took American boxing and added in like elbows and clinch work, so like a little bit of wrestling, some trips and throws, and a lot of like your knees and stuff. So like a lot of ways to like really cut people and stuff. That's Muay Thai. And I do think Muay Thai is a little bit more practical than traditional American kickboxing. But yeah, at the end of the day, it just depends on the individual, actually. So like, my favorite fighter at the moment is Alex Pereira, who was a glory kickboxer before he came over to MMA, and now he's one of the best fighters in the world. But at the same time, you look at guys at the top of each division. Who do we have? Light, no, not light heavyweight. Heavyweight, you have John Jones and Tom Aspinall are the champ and interim, and they need to fight. They're well-rounded, all-round fighters, but John Jones has a wrestling background, and Aspinall is one of the younger guys who kind of came up with everything. Who was the light heavyweight? Oh, Alex Pereira. So you have a kickboxer and a Muay Thai fighter as the light heavyweight champion. Middleweight is Dricus du Plessis, who is a freak of nature that defies all logic. He's a movie character. He just fights harder, and he just wins because he's the main character of the world. Then you have welterweight, and currently that is a wrestler, Bilal Muhammad. A good jab. Like, I don't want to, when I say a wrestler, Bilal Muhammad has good striking, but that is like, his striking is in service of fighting up close and wrestling people. Lightweight Islam Makhachev, one of the best all-round fighters in the world, but again, it's that Dagestani grappling that makes him such a threat. It is what allows him to get away with throwing such high kicks. Nobody is going to try to take him down. He is so far superior in his grappling than most other people that he can kind of do whatever he wants on the feet, and not worry about going to the ground, because that's kind of where he wants it anyway. 45, Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria is, again, one of those young guys who kind of has it all. But if I were to kind of narrow it down to one style that he kind of brings out to work the most, he's a really good pressure fighter who kind of relies heavily on his hands. But I don't want to take away from his kicks or his grappling. But at the end of the day, it is the power that he has in his boxing that really helps him through some of the fights he's had. Who is bantamweight? Marab, wrestler. Flyweight, Pantoja, jiu-jitsu. Best back taker in the sport, by the way. Pantoja, nasty. And then the women's champions, you have Shang Weili, who is, again, kind of jack of all trades, but her grappling is really like where she eliminates people. Who else? You have kind of a mess at bantamweight with Juliana Pena by default. I would expect Kayla Harrison to get that pretty soon. But yeah, you have a variety of what is successful and what is not. It depends a lot on the individual and their athleticism and their tactics, because at the end of the day, fighting is not about styles. It is about attributes and tactics. All right, Flama says, never know when you have to Dagestani handcuff an alligator. Yeah, I use the Dagestani handcuff. By the way, Dagestani handcuff refers to, baby girl, come here. Hey, I'll show you. Come here. Oh my goodness. So if you're grappling someone and you have them pressed up against the fence, and you go behind their back with one hand and you trap this hand here, and then you kind of like put your weight above their head and you can like hit them with the other hand or maneuver them to like front headlocks and stuff. I use that more on sharks, actually, but I do it backwards. I go underneath the shark and I grab the fin. So it's like a upside down Dagestani handcuff. Alligators are shockingly... I caught a huge alligator recently. If you haven't seen that, that is also on the YouTube channel. Massive alligator took my bait when I was fishing for alligator gar. And we had to catch him and unhook him, and then he got tangled in the line, and I had to go in the water with him and get the line off of him. And it was a nightmare because he was big. Alligators are shockingly not dependent on their feet. So if you've seen enough alligators and crocodiles in the wild, you will no doubt have noticed that quite a few of them are missing both the tag end of their tail and also limbs. They're missing whole limbs, and they're totally fine. They can survive without a limb or two. So grabbing an alligator by its limb to try to immobilize it ain't gonna work. You want to drive your weight down across that animal right into the ground. That is pretty much the only spot you can hold on to them where they're not going to overpower you. Assuming, of course, that you don't outweigh it. If that animal outweighs you, you need to drive your weight straight down on top of that thing. You and a couple of trustworthy friends. Surf Fishing says, "Did the great white bycatch surprise you?" Yeah, so we were going for a couple of different species throughout that trip. We were going for. I really wanted to see a leopard shark. I wanted to see a leopard shark my whole life. Some leopard sharks actually swam by us in the shallows, and I didn't get to see them. I did get to see some guitar fish though, which is really cool. But I wanted some leopard sharks. We were going for mako. That was a huge target that we were trying to get mako from shore, which Spencer ended up getting from Florida recently. If you go to his Instagram page, he caught a massive mako shark from the shore. And then threshers are supposed to be in that area at that time of year. And when that when it took, I could not see, like, there was like a buoy, and I could not see that buoy for the life of me. Spencer somehow knew where it was, and he could see it. He probably has better eyes than I do. And so he told me, like, there's a shark on. So we jump in the gear, we jump in the harness, hook everything up. You wait. You don't strike straight away. Sharks are finicky eaters, right? So when a shark takes a bait, they're not like alligator gar finicky, but it's kind of in that same vein. They don't swallow it straight away like a bass. They grab that bait, they might drop that bait. They'll come back to the bait, they'll chomp on it a little bit. Sometimes they'll drop it again. Sometimes they'll come back to it and then they take it. So you got to wait a minute. Good rule of thumb is when a shark takes your bait, count to 10. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 10. Then you set the hook. And in the video, when I set the hook on that fish, it just took off and it pulled me forward about 6 or 7 feet. And I was not expecting that kind of power. It was really strong. I think in the video you can hear me say, "Oh my God," like out loud as I'm like getting pulled forward because I didn't think that was going to happen. So we fight this animal in, and we kind of know what's on the line by the way it's fighting. So Spencer, I mean, it's like I can tell you when I have an alligator gar on the line versus a catfish versus like all these other different species, because I catch so many of them. And Spencer catches so many sharks that he could tell, like, kind of during the fight, he's like, "Hey, I think it's a white shark." Like, just the way that it was fighting was different. So we finally get it to the water where it starts cutting its fin back and forth, and it's like, "Oh my God, that's a great white shark!" And it was the coolest thing ever. The one thing that makes me sad is that the camera and I this is true no matter what kind of camera you're using. And by the way, we are upgrading camera gear. I'll show you in a second. No matter what kind of camera you're using, some animals, just the colors just don't translate. Your eye is the best camera nature ever invented. Well, bird's eyes probably, but or a mantis shrimp or something. But anyway, your eye can see so many more colors than a camera ever can. And it just pains me to know that when you guys watch that video, you can't see all the colors I could being there. Just imagine like the most brilliant shades of purple in an animal, like running through his face. Like on camera, it just looks like this bluish gray, which is still beautiful, but that shark was shockingly beautiful when we got up close to it. And I got real close to his head and he tried to grab my hand. I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to back up now." Stay on this other end. Because that shark was big enough that if he had got a hold of one of us, he could have taken something off of us. He wasn't huge. Like he wasn't, pushing. He wasn't breaking 10 feet, I don't think. He was smaller than that. But he was still several hundred pounds of shark. And once a great white breaks that like 8-foot mark, they can kill people. I want to say the shark that one of the two sharks, because I think it was two sharks that started this spree of killings, quote unquote, that inspired the book Jaws. One of them was a white shark. One of them was a bull shark. One of them was a white shark. And we know one of them was an 8-foot white shark because when they caught it, they found the guy's jawbone in its stomach. One of the guys that was killed. And an 8-foot white shark can kill you. They have just a mouth full of razor blades, and their mouth is about this big. Like, that doesn't look huge until you imagine the rest of the animal around it being like this big, and you realize it's like this giant pile of muscle that's 10 times stronger than you and faster than you in the water. And when I was hanging onto that animal's tail, because the waves in California are weird. They're not like in Houston or the South Texas area. Like the moment you step in that water, you're in deep water. It's weird. And the waves come way up the beach and then they go way back out. And I basically am hanging onto this shark in shallow water. The waves go out and now the shark is beach. He's on the ground. That is when Spencer got that photo for the thumbnail. Then the wave comes right back in and we're in the water again. So when I turn around and I start pulling that shark back through the water, the strength it had is just phenomenal. Like just like when that animal moves you, imagine somebody pushing you, right? And I've only felt this a few times with a few animals. When an animal pushes you or a person pushes you, a lot of the times you can like kind of take it and kind of push against it. And then sometimes there's so much power involved that when it pushes you, that is not an option. It kind of feels like if a car was backing into you. Like you can't just take it, like it's moving you. So when that shark started moving its tail when I was holding onto it, I couldn't just like take that power and redirect it the way I would with like an alligator gar. Like it was like moving my body. I've only felt that with one alligator gar. That shark, those sea bass, the sea bass didn't move a whole lot when you were unhooking them, but then when you got them into the water, wherever they wanted to go, you were going to go unless you let them go. Horses, cows, like big animals, right? When they want to move you, they're going to move you. So yeah, that shark, very surprising catch, very welcome catch, obviously. It's one of those, what's his face? Bob Ross would say, happy little accident. Except this is a huge accident with very sharp teeth. Let's see. Nathan Holman says, do you think Jones and Aspinall will fight this year? And if so, when? I am so nervous that that fight is not going to happen, so we'll see. Bill Clement says, any chance you are related to Steve Martin? Unfortunately not. Or I would write Uncle Steve and be like, hey, man, share some of that dough. Ringo Fishing says, do you think Adesanya should stick to his own weight class or keep trying for another belt? Definitely stick to his own weight class. The last time he moved up, he did not look well. He's got the height, but he doesn't have the frame to pack on the weight to move up. Some guys do, some guys don't. Pereira does. So Pereira is, like when he's at middleweight, he's Adesanya's height, and you can tell he's a little bit more filled out than Adesanya, but his frame is noticeably bigger. So when he wanted to move up and he put that weight on, suddenly he looked like a big light heavyweight. When Adesanya moved up some years ago and fought Jan Blachowicz, you could tell this is a middleweight trying to fight a light heavyweight. He has the skills. Absolutely, he has the skills, but he just doesn't have the size for it. Your frame has a lot to do with how well you can fight up. So middleweight, he should definitely stay there. Psychic Psych Toad says, I've always wanted to see an electric guitar fish. Is that such a thing? I know there's guitar fish. I can't tell if you're... Hang on. I don't think there's... Is that a thing? There's the thornback guitarfish. Is there a version that can use electric shock the same way like certain rays can? I don't know. I'll have to look that up. I'm not seeing any results for that, so I'm going to assume you're making a pun. Neurophyperus, yeah, I knew that. Huh, yeah, no, I'm not seeing anything. Let's see. Nathan Holmes says, caught many makos and small leopards, commercial long lining. Bill Coleman says, you are so right. Now, no camera can recommend, blah, blah, blah. Ugh, I'm misreading everything. You are so right. No camera can replicate the blue of Crater Lake. Yeah, I think Crater Lake is the lake left behind by Mount St. Helens, if I'm not mistaken. That was actually the answer on a game show we were watching the other day to a question. But yeah, it's kind of frustrating. You go out there, you try to film it, you're like, this picture's going to be amazing. And you look at it and you're like, it just doesn't translate. This is not the same. But since you brought it back up, this is one of the cameras, this is the beat up broken camera I've been using as like my B camera. GoPro 8 is what I've been using for a very long time. Finally shelled out all this money and I bought the newer GoPro 13. There's the 13 right there. Bought the GoPro 13. I bought a whole bunch of gear to go with it. So I've got that, the 2.8s, and a couple of other different types of cameras that companies have given me over the years. So the quality of the films I'm going to make are, I'm going to start putting a whole lot more, not only intent behind the camera work in filming them, but also in planning them and stuff. So expect many more bigger projects this year. Let's see. Didn't bull shark attacks in a New Jersey river inspire Jaws? Yes. So you can actually go see that dock. I think it's still there. There's a creek in New Jersey that is near the mouth of the river where it deltas into the coast there. And one of the attacks was a bull shark, and one of them was a white shark. And we, like I said, we know one of them was a bull shark because of where it happened, and then there was another attack nearby, and we know that one was a white shark because I do believe they found the bone of the victim in the shark's stomach. If I'm remembering that correctly, I think that is accurate. So yes, bull sharks might have caused the initial attack, but there was an additional attack. People in their minds, when things like this happen, they lump things together. So there were two unrelated shark attacks in two unrelated places, and people were like, "Oh my God, the shark is traveling and killing people everywhere." And I think there were two different kinds of sharks. Third Coast Fishing says, "What's up, my guy? Not a whole lot." Bentley Usamaki says, "Do you have any tips for me on starting out on gar fishing in the Brazos?" Um, uh, yes. When you're looking for fishing spots, well, first off, this is a rough time of year to start. They're just not going to be that active. I would, you know, wait a couple of weeks after this freeze blows through, and you want things to kind of at least be in the 70s. And you got to remember the water temperature is probably going to be colder than the air temperature. I would recommend either starting with single hooks or the circle hook rig that I make. Stay away from trebles. You want fresh bait. Gar in different areas are going to differ on what they like to eat the most. So carp, tilapia, or mullet, different zones of fish throughout the course, even of a single river, are going to prefer different types of bait. I would recommend fishing baits free line, so don't put weight on them. Fish can tell when there's weight attached to something they're trying to eat. They know it's not natural to have this secondary weight pulling on it. So I would recommend staying away from those. It's also just one more thing to get snagged. When you're looking for fishing spots on rivers or creeks or bayous, look for eddies. So if you're looking at a map, like an aerial map or a satellite map, and you have your river here, look for points in the river or bends in the river where the water swirls around something, usually like old bridges, trees, just natural formations of rock and mud that kind of jet out. You want to see that water going around it and then circling back on itself. That is gold. That is where they're going to be hiding. Let the fish take that bait and run, but don't let them run too long. A good, kind of like sharks, a good 10 count is a good way to start. And then, much like the way gar prefers some baits over others in different areas, how long you have to wait to set the hook will change based on where you are. And you'll have to learn that. That's not something somebody can just tell you. A lot of the times you'll see me fishing for alligator gar. A gar will take the bait. I'll do a 10 count. He's on. Sometimes I'll like let it take that bait for a full minute. Sometimes like a minute and a half. And people in the comments are always like screaming at me, like, set the hook, set your hook. And then when I get that fish in the video, every single time you'll notice that hook is like right here, right here, right here. Some fish, and I know this from experience because I've been doing this a very long time, obsessively. Some fish I know based on where they are and how they're moving on the end of the line, they require more time to take the bait. So you're going to have to kind of get used to that. But I would recommend starting on the short end of a 10 count. Like a slow 10 count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. Try to set the hook when the fish is moving away from you, not towards you. You don't always have a choice in that regard, but a lot of the times you you can kind of like see the run, get on the right side of it, count to 10 as it's moving, set the hook as it's moving away from you. That increases the chances of a solid hook set. Have a plan on where you're going to hook the fish, fight the fish, land the fish, release the fish. Get all those things figured out before you start trying to do it, or they will be each a nightmare for you to do. And I'm going to recommend catch and release as always, because that is what I do. Third Coast Fishing says, Bentley big hooks and big baits. Yeah, again, depends entirely on where you're fishing, though. So a lot of people assume, and I know you fish a lot, so I'm not saying you assume, but a lot of people assume that like, oh, big fish only want big baits. But that's not true. The biggest gar I ever caught, one of the biggest gar I ever caught, I caught on a piece of mullet about that big. So know where they are and make the food easy for them to find. That's the key. Also remember, the bigger a piece of food is, the more effort a fish, or any animal really, will put into getting into a safe zone to swallow it. So a gar that picks up like half a carp, because they can swallow that, they can easily. They'll pick up half a carp. They're going to travel as far as they need to make sure they are in a safe zone away from other predators that are going to steal it, to swallow that food. And it's like it's an exchange. The currency is energy. The fish is going to know like, hey, this is a huge meal, so I can put in a little bit more work to get to a safe zone to swallow it. So the bigger your bait, the longer it might take for the fish to swallow it. One of the things I'll do sometimes when I'm fishing in areas where I know it's crowded, not with fishermen, but with fish, is I will fish smaller baits on purpose, because it's not worth the fish's time to leave the area knowing some other predator might try to pull it out of his mouth. If the bait is small, it's not worth their time. They're going to hit it, they're going to swallow it, and I can increase the time, or I'm sorry, I can decrease the time that it takes for those gar to get the bait back into their mouth. Because you can't hook them in the front of the jaw. If you're new to this, you can't hook them in the front of the jaw. It's too bony. You'll never do it. Also, the way their jaw is built, usually I display this with like a pair of tongs, but I'll just use my hands. A lot of times they'll hold the bait crosswise in their mouth. So imagine the hook is in this end of your bait, and they'll hold it like this. So when you set the hook, it's just not there. You got to wait for them to kind of take it back, and then you can get them. You can increase the speed at which they will decide to do that by using smaller baits. So I would recommend getting used to the way the fish behave in a particular area and go from there based on how big you want your bait to be. If you're fishing a huge river, like a huge slow river, and you got plenty of room on each side, and remember, sometimes if you're not using weights, you might want a bigger bait to sink a bait down. That's when I would use a bigger bait. Bigger rivers, less debris on the sides, longer run times. That's when a bigger bait can come in handy, because it's also going to help a big fish find it. White Wolf Play RBX says, what's up? Surf Fishing says, when will we get the tackle bag tour? Need to clean my garage out. I did say I was going to do something like that, a live stream where I had different tackle bags, like one for carp, one for gar, and all that. I don't know. I need to clean my garage out. We're going to go. Fishing says, gotta be a joke. I do joke occasionally. Psychic Psytoad says, I was just oh, wait, he's talking to you. Oh, yeah, the electric guitar fish. I was making a joke about electric guitars. Yeah, I thought you were, and then I was like, is there one that uses, like, electric impulse? No, I figured you might have been making a joke. I just wanted to double check. Never assume you know everything, guys, about any kind of animal. Like, there's always going to be something you're going to learn at every single stage. So when he said electric guitar fish, I was like, is there one? Let's see. Palma said, I knew you were talking about the GoPro 13. Great upgrade compared to the previous versions. Yeah, there's a lot of things on it that I like. One of the things that I'm excited about is I bought a side door to replace this one that has like a magnetic attachment for like a charging unit. So I can actually charge the camera while filming, which is cool. And I bought a bunch of batteries and different. One of the things that they made, I bought some of these too. And they kind of copied the GoPro lawyers. If you're watching this, you didn't copy anything. But the bottom, and this one is so old. They still have this feature. You can fold these out and use the traditional screw method for the mounts, but there's also this quick clip that DJI uses and GoPro has it, where basically it's like a magnetic clip that goes like this, and I could, like, if I got it on my head, I could just hit the sides of it, release it, boom, boom, put it on like a camera stand, boom, boom, real fast. Like it's such a cool upgrade. Ringo Fishing said, "Oh, Tex Angler says, hey, hey back." Ringo Fishing says, "Any idea when and where gar spawn? Main River, backwaters, feeder creeks, time of year." Well, I'm not going to give you specifics, but yes, the basics are they tend to spawn in spring to late spring, and typically they require flood zones. So alligator gar like areas that are flooding, so like the edges of rivers that are flooding over the natural zone into like thick grasses and stuff. That is traditionally that is where alligator gar like to spawn, which is one of the reasons that constructions of artificial dams, in addition to being devastating to wildlife for so many other reasons, this is something that ecology in the United States is finally kind of catching up with in regards to its ability to impact the way laws are written. Is dams. That's a big thing right now. In addition to their negative impact on so many other species, one of the negative impacts they have is they tend to prevent flood zones from forming that gar need to spawn. Bill Clement says, "You should come to New England, catch a tuna." I would love to catch a tuna. I got a new car, so who knows? Surf Fishing says, "I know you said you're..." Sorry. The older you get, guys, sometimes, occasionally, I will hear like the most horrific high-pitched ring in my ear. Surf Fishing says, "I know you said you're big into movies. Did you get to see any of the big ones in 2024? Yeah, I think my favorite film of 2024, which is my favorite film, or probably the last 5 years almost, for a while, probably Dune 2. I love that movie so much. I think I've seen it like 7 or 8 times since it came out earlier this year. Wicked was great. There's been a lot of good movies. Twisters was great. I haven't seen Conclave yet. I need to see that. And I want to see some of the Oscar contenders. Anora. What was the other one? The Brutalist. Haven't seen those yet. Nathan Holman says, "If you ever want to go commercial snapper or grouper fishing, just let me know. It would make an awesome video. We get a bad rap, and I'd like to change the narrative. I'm also a conservationist." Yeah, I mean, I'll look into it and let you know. That is a fish I've yet to catch. I've eaten a fillet of grouper on a Disney cruise, and it was amazing. Texas Angler says, "What size hook you use for gar?" Treble hook. Never treble hooks. I'm a huge advocate of leaving trebles behind forever. There is never a good reason to use a treble hook on a bait. On a lure, it's fine, because the lure, you get the strike, you set the hook, right? And on smaller gar, even bigger gar, technically, if you have the right knowledge of how to do it, you can hook them on the outside of the mouth. So the lure trebles are fine. But on a bait, remember, you're letting that fish take it kind of back here. You want either a very strong, small single hook, or you want a circle hook, and not just any circle hook. It has to be a modified shape of a circle hook. And I have, in the description of this video, there is a leader that I designed and Terra Firma Tackle sells for alligator gar to use circle hooks. A lot of people are under the misguided impression that you can't do it. But I've proven time and time again that you can, and it's also, I think, the future of alligator gar fishing. So definitely, bare minimum, use a strong single hook. Barbless is better. And then what I'd recommend getting used to is using circle hooks. Modified circle hooks. Tiger Muskeen says hello. "You catch some monsters?" Thank you, I try. It's been a couple of months. I think the last time I caught what I would consider a monster was probably that white shark. I've caught some good fish since then, but nothing like that. Alex O says, "What's up, buddy? Love the videos. Love it in H Town. I'm glad you're tuning in." My dog is like chewing on my hand. Let's see. Mason Ballard says, "I've caught some American eel recently. Ooh, they're a lot of fun and like hot. They like hot dogs and worms. Yeah, American eels, really interesting species. I do believe they're endangered, so if you catch them, you gotta let it go. But they are really unique, very hard to handle. Like when you get a hold of an eel, I'd recommend actually using a like a rag. Um, and when you grab them, what you'd want to do is get the rag wet, of course, but you basically want to grab them with a rag. Otherwise, they're just going to move all through your hand. They are. If you think catfish are slimy, multiply that times 100. And that's what it's like to handle an eel. But yes, they are incredible fish for sure. Ringo Fishing says, "Imagine watching a Nile crocodile wolf down a big zebra leg when you want to know how gar eats bait." I'm going to push back on that. Very different types of feeding processes. Um, you're just describing an animal that physically looks similar, but they do not eat similar at all. Little Actuary says, "Any cool alligator stories while fishing in Houston?" Well, yeah, one of the last videos I uploaded when I was fishing with Thumb, we ended up hooking a massive alligator by mistake. We were river fishing for alligator gar, and we hooked a massive alligator. And the process of getting the hook out and the line off of it, because it got tangled in the line, was a nightmare and very scary, very dangerous. Had to go wading in the water up to like my chest, looking for it under the water to try to get the line off of it. It was a big animal. So go watch that video. Jimmy says, "What do you look for in a fish size or beauty?" What do I look for? Fish size or beauty? I look for a couple of different things. First off, I think all animals are gorgeous if you appreciate them as the species that they are. A lot of people would push back immediately on the fish that I'm known for catching, which is alligator gar. A lot of people are like, "Oh, they're so ugly." It's like, what is beautiful and ugly is entirely arbitrary. The phrase "beauty is in the eye of the beholder" is 100% true. Why is a trout beautiful but an alligator gar isn't? Well, it's just because tradition has it that one is more popular to catch for sport. Therefore, we value that animal more in its relationship, or to how humans use it is considered more valuable, and therefore it is a more beautiful animal. But alligator gar, gorgeous. If you've ever actually looked at one up close, and that's really the thing, is most people haven't. They're beautiful. They're absolutely stunning animals. They're incredible, especially when they're young and they have like this black and yellow mixture through their fins. They look like cheetahs. And I've been up close to a cheetah, like not just like looking at it through this fence of a zoo, but I've actually been in there with them, because like I said earlier, I worked at a zoo for a very long time. Like I've been up close and personal with cheetahs. And alligator gar, man, their fins look just like cheetahs. It's incredible. So size or beauty, to me, they're not really different things. I appreciate things that are big. Obviously, it's better for the camera when things are big. As far as YouTube goes, the bigger the better. That is just the facts, right? I can more easily sell a video where I catch something that weighs several hundred pounds than I can sell a video where something is small. That's just the way people's reactions to animals are. But as far as like my appreciation for an animal's beauty is concerned, what I will recommend to prove this point is just go back and watch any video where I find a big animal, and go back and watch any video where I find a small animal. I mean, tiny. Could be a frog this big. And what you'll notice is my reaction is almost exactly the same to how enthralled and excited I am about this animal in front of me. There was a day where I was with my two brothers and my uncle and my cousin. We were doing some reconstruction on a house post, I want to say it was Harvey. It might have been the flood that came through in 2016. But we were hauling a bunch of stuff out to a garbage dump, and we saw bald eagle out there. Well, when we were picking up all this garbage, we saw this huge earthworm. Like as far as earthworms go, it was like this long, which isn't that long, but it was about as big around as my thumb. And when I saw it, I was like, "Oh my god, look at this!" Is it like I got so excited. And then later, when we were driving out to the garbage dump, we saw a bald eagle, and I looked at the bald eagle flying over. So like, "Oh my god, that's a bald eagle! Look at that!" And my brother observed. Like he's like, "You reacted the exact same way an hour ago when you saw a worm." And yeah, I love wildlife. I get so excited about all types of wildlife. So as far as the camera goes, you want big. But as far as my personal appreciation for how incredible something is, it doesn't change. My reaction to animals does not change based on the size. And I can prove that because it's on camera. 400 plus videos later, you will see me react the same way to big animals or tiny animals. All right, hang on one second. Goodness. My neck is so sore. Come here. She is very upset that I have been giving y'all my attention for so long, and I've not been giving her attention. Tell everyone, say, I need a haircut. She needs a haircut. You need a haircut. All right. Let me show you something cool my sister got me for Christmas. I was going to show you all this a second ago. I was going to buy one of these myself, but I just never got around to it. But my one of my sisters, I have 5 sisters. One of my sisters got me this. And this is part of her job. A huge aspect of her job is research, like legitimate research, not just looking things up on Google, but like actual research, scientific research. So when she got me this, and she was like, "Hey, I did the research to make sure this was like a legitimate like version of this," that carries weight to it. So hang on, I'm gonna scooch my dog down because I don't want her near this while I'm messing with it. Back up, baby girl. Back up. So I got this as a gift recently, which is just the most gorgeous thing. It is a katana, and it's got like authentic ray skin, authentic silk. It is absolutely gorgeous. I was gonna buy one, and I just never got around to it. And I got gifted with one. So just really beautiful. Let me show you the blade on it, because it is just lovely, and it is very, very sharp. Like this is a legitimate sword. Now katanas are made to slice through people, not paper. So that you'll see a lot of social media challenges where people will try to cut through like a dangling newspaper. And you're like, why is that hard? Well, it's because katanas are not designed to cut through paper. They're designed to cut through people. So it takes like perfect technique to use one of these. Now, kendo was actually the first martial art I ever began to study. And I got some practice in before I started actually training taekwondo. So I've had a long love of swords. I do know how to use one like I couldn't beat someone in a sword fight if they were well trained with a sword, but I do know the like appropriate use of a sword. I actually know the techniques and stuff like that, so I can very carefully kind of maneuver it the correct way. But let me just show you guys. Like it is a real sword. Like it's sharp. And again, katana, see, it didn't cut that. Katana's not made to cut paper, they're made to cut people. So even doing this is Even doing this is a little bit difficult, but it's as I'm trying to show this off, I keep breaking the paper. There we go. See how hard that was? Like, you got to do this very carefully or it will not work. It's a real test of skill when you see people just go straight through a paper. I cannot do that. There we go. Yeah, see, the movement that you have to have with a sword to cut through paper, katana to cut through paper, is very specific. But yeah, beautiful weapon. I love this. I have a really cool display in there that I have this on. I got to be very careful with it because, as you can see, it is very sharp. But yeah, beautiful sword. You got to make sure also that you're not leaving like oils from your hands on it and stuff. That is a easy way to create rust. Beautiful. All right. Let's see if anyone has any other questions, because I am now that I have a new car, We are planning some trips out of state. Again, I have been itching to go catch some fish out of state. I have some really big projects. One of the things that you guys are going to see more of on this show this year is you're going to see a lot of videos. Because remember, I didn't have a car the last couple of months. I got one now, so I can actually go out and start filming things again. But what you're going to see more of is large projects, very carefully designed, scripted, very, very intentionally filmed projects that are going to take a bit of time. I'm planning a couple right now that are going to take a couple of weeks of planning to do. In the meantime, you're going to see a lot of cool videos and stuff that I'm going to go film out of state. But yeah, lots of cool stuff coming down the road. Increase in camera quality. I have wheels now. I can go anywhere I want, and nobody can stop me. All right, I think I have a video coming out very soon, so keep your eye out for it. And until then, I think I will catch you guys later. Oh, check out the description of this video if you want the alligator gar rigs that I use, or if you want to follow me on Instagram, or if you want to support us on Patreon. And I'll catch you guys later.